and now he's back home in Buffalo. And he's also the founder of Prudent Plastic Surgery, or plastic surgeon. And so, Jordan, tell us about what you're doing now in Buffalo, and why you did what you're doing with kind of educating plastic surgeons about this big gap in their knowledge.
Yeah, so I'm about a year and a half now into practice in Buffalo, and I do mostly reconstructive microsurgery. But I also am about a year and a half into starting this blog, The Prudent Plastic Surgeon. And the real impetus for this was when I was reaching the end of my training. I did, 6 years plastic surgery residency and then 1 year of fellowship. As I was getting to the end of it, I realized that I knew nothing about personal finance. And it was really...
After all your training and everything else, and that's very typical. The business of plastic surgery, the business of medicine.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was finally going to become an attending. People were telling me, oh, you're finally going to be an attending. You're going to be, finally making money. It's going to be awesome. And I was just like, it honestly doesn't feel like it's going to be that awesome, because I have, and these are real numbers, like I have $500,000 in debt. I have credit card debt. I have no savings, no investments. I know next to nothing. I have a wife, 2 kids that now, we're moving, need to figure out if we're going to get a house, how we're going to do all this. And it was contributing to, symptoms of burnout. And it wasn't even necessarily burnout from clinically, but I just financially felt really, really in this hole. And so we decided to do something about it. My wife and I, we learned about it. We started managing our finances. We made all these changes. And I just decided to start writing about it because a lot of medical people.
Yeah, you're not alone. Yeah, you're not alone. I mean, we all learn everything the hard way. I mean, I had almost that much debt when I came to Dallas, just like you. And when you went home, and you're not alone. And most of the time you learn it by the school of hard knocks. But I think I really like what you're doing. You've really made it methodical, and you've really, so tell us about that. So okay, that was the platform. That was the reason for and why. And then tell us what you're doing.
Yeah. So, I think the biggest thing I'm trying to do is just teach these kind of foundational personal finance things that we need to know. And that's important because for so long, and it continues to be really pervasive, but money is such a taboo thing in medicine, and everyone thinks, well, it's not why we got into it. We got into it to help people, so we can't talk about it. And that's just not obviously, it's a big part of our well-being.
Right. No margin, no mission. I mean, if you can't make money, you can't help people.
Exactly. So, just teaching these basic kind of principles, just even things like learning how to budget or saving 20%, learning how to invest, and just managing lifestyle. Because I think physicians, and especially plastic surgeons, we tend to equate our income with wealth. And that's not the case. That's a big misconception, because you can make $1 million, but if you spend $1 million, your net worth, your wealth is zero. And a lot of people get in trouble with that, because all of a sudden you start making some money, and you can buy the car, the house, the this, the that, all the toys, and you can eat it up pretty quick. We see it happen with sports stars all the time.
Right, it's like the old slogan,
right. It's like the old
have a big
slogan,
car, big house,
I'm gonna have a big car, big house. But that's kind of the reverse of what you want to do. You want to be debt free.
Keep your Honda, keep your Toyota,
keep your Honda, keep your Toyota, and not get the BMW until you're debt free, and has started your savings, and all of those things, which really I think are so important. And I know you talk about that, but that's one of the most important foundations to do, is to become debt free, and then invest in your family and your future, and then
tell us about
those basic foundations, because I really like what you're doing. It's really kind of a nice stepping stone for really becoming financially not only stable but secure lifelong.
Yeah, and it's all that lifestyle. One of the first books I read was The Millionaire Next Door, but they have like an anecdote in there about a guy from Texas, just kind of someone who looks like your average working guy, and is a millionaire and all this stuff. And he's talking about all the other people driving fancy cars, and he calls them all hat, no cattle.
That's a Texas saying we have. That's right. Yeah. Or it's the guy that's got his BMW parked out his apartment, and lives in California, and that's not a sign of prosperity.
And so in terms of going back, some of the, basic things I started doing. So when my wife and I started out, like I said, we had no savings and we had a lot of debt. And it sounds as simple as we just learned to pay ourselves first. We were used to getting a paycheck and paying everyone else, paying, the rent, paying for this, that, and the other. But we started paying ourselves first. And as a resident, it was, a little challenging. So we were only paying ourselves for saving, like maybe 5% of our income. But we started this habit so that when I did become an attending, we had it down and it became really easy. So now, we save on a monthly basis anywhere between like 45 and 50% of our income. My wife's a professor at a local university. And we use a lot of that to pay off our debt. I have a ton of debt. My wife doesn't have much, right, but she married it. So, we pay off every month a huge amount of debt. And then the rest that we have left over, we have a financial plan that we wrote down what our goals are, where our money will go every month. And it becomes about filling buckets. We pay off a certain amount to our debt. And then once that bucket becomes full by paying off all of our debt, it will go, somewhere else. We max out our 401ks. And then any extra we have, we invest in other things like real estate. So that was the biggest thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a discipline. It's a discipline and change of life. It's a discipline of, putting yourself first and becoming debt free. What does Ramsey say? Give us the shout for the debt free, Ramsey shout out. And I mean, I think honestly, it's kind of basic stuff, but it's so true, because getting debt free, paying yourself first, developing a savings plan, obviously the 401k, the Roth IRA, all those things are very important. And yet they're so basic that, as educated as physicians are, the blind side for us is that it's the business side of medicine.
It's a funny sort of mindset thing, because all of us as plastic surgeons, we go through some of the most grueling training and the hoops we have to jump through. Right. And we get through simply because we believe in ourselves and our ability to do it. But then when it comes to finance, we feel like, oh, this is too complicated for us. We can't do this. And really, it's so much simpler.
Complicated things every day.
Exactly.
And I look at
and that's why I tell people
Wall Street, and that when it got their MBAs, and I got my MBA the hard way, obviously through the School of Hard Knocks, but it's not hard, but it has to be a discipline. You have to learn.
Yeah, exactly. It's not necessarily, it's simple, but it's not easy, if that makes sense, because behaviorally,
right. You can, like you said, you made a plan, you did a goal, you fill the buckets, and it's just sticking to that plan, sticking to that budget.
Exactly.
So what words of wisdom do you have for somebody that's just starting plastic surgery? And then I'm going to ask you about one that's when you've been out about 5 or 10 years, and then I'll tell you what it's like for later. Okay.
That sounds good. I think just starting out, I always tell people, I get asked to talk to a lot of residency programs. And I think the most important thing is just start to educate yourself. And when you're in residency, the biggest thing you're going to be doing and where your focus should be is becoming the best plastic surgeon you can and learning all about that. But there are simple things you can do just to set yourself up so you don't end up like I did at the end of training. So, when I first started learning, my goals I set out was I was going to read one personal finance book a year. So I basically just tried to read like 5 to 10 pages a day, which is very manageable. And I read one blog post of a personal finance blog a day. I just did it in between OR cases. And by the end of, the 6 months that I did that before the end of my training, it was amazing how much I had learned. And so even if you just do that and don't do any of the hard sort of, personal finance thing, even if you don't save another dollar, like you're going to be way better off than most people. But The other biggest thing I recommend is learning that pay yourself first. And again, in residency, it's much tougher because you don't make as much. But if you can do something where even if you just try to save 1% of your money each month and then increase it by 1%. So the first month you save 1%, then 2%, and keep going just to build that habit, because it's so much easier to develop that savings rate before you start making a ton of money than
Now, tell us what you mean by paying yourself first.
As soon as you get your paycheck, it just automatically comes out of your checking account, and either it goes to your savings account or an investment account. And like that 20%, you never see it. It's just gone. The money you have for everything else is that 80% at least that's left. It can be more than that, but 20% is a good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
That
is good. And that'll help you with your budget. That'll help you also get debt free. And then you can start building, your capital, your, like you mentioned, your, on the basic stuff for the IRAs, your retirement plans, your Roth IRAs and all those things. But
exactly.
And then it's the other things, you're investing, real estate's a good one and other investments, but never invest in anything you don't know anything about. If it doesn't make sense to you, and I can tell you, physicians and plastic surgeons, we are sitting ducks. Because we invest in, they say, wow, that's a good idea, or that's a good guy. There's no such thing as a good guy or a good idea unless you think it's a good idea. And you've researched it. I mean, I can tell you there's been so many scams in plastic surgery where many plastic surgeons, and I'm not going to mention the most recent one, where millions of dollars were lost because and we were all asked to invest in it. And the thing is, it never made sense to me. So, if you know about business, if you know about how to read a spreadsheet and looking at a business plan, I always look at the business plan and I always look at, does this make sense to me? And if it doesn't make sense to you, don't do it. Even if the worst thing you do is have all your great friends invest. And they invest hundreds of thousands, millions. You know what? That doesn't make it a good investment. I can't tell you how many times I've had friends they've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. But until I think, and then get advice. Just like in plastic surgery. When you were training at NYU, which is one of the best training programs in the world, you got advice right from your attendings. So guess what I do?
Yeah, exactly.
I get advice from my financial advisors because I never trust any one person. The only person that makes a decision in my financial planning is me. I have three financial planners that I work with, and they all do different things, and they only know a part of the puzzle. They know a part of my real estate planning, they know part of my bonds, my stocks, and then the other one does all my IRAs and my retirement. But none of them know the whole piece because I'm the one that you have to be captain of your own ship. It's kind of like in the OR. In the OR, you're the captain of the ship. So, and plastic surgeons understand that. So what you do is you learn each part of their puzzle, and they're the experts. So you get opinions. So like let's say there's this great new device that's going to be fantastic. You know that science, but then I let my business people look at that company, and if it makes sense, and if it makes sense, and I'm going to use it, and I can then see the value, then I'm going to invest in it. But if it doesn't make any sense, I'm not going to do it. But so get advice. What do you think?
Yeah, no, that's such a good. I think that's perfect, and that's such good advice. And I always kind of relate it to the OR in the sense in all aspects of life, but in the OR, there's people who complexify things and there's people who simplify things. And for instance, I learned more about rhinoplasty from you than anyone else because you're able to break it down in these component parts,
right,
and lay it out simple, and it just makes sense.
Right. Well, that's what experts do. You take something complicated, and you do the same thing in microsurgery. If you talk and people understand you, you failed. That's why I take complex things like rhinoplasty and faceless. I make them simple so I can teach them. Because if you can't teach it, you shouldn't be doing it.
And it's the same thing with finance. These
right.
Are not, if you, like you said, if you don't understand it, if someone's saying, oh, just trust me, proprietary way, and if you don't understand it, there's a reason for that, and just walk away. There's no called strikes in investing. If even if you miss out on something, you'll just find the next one.
That's right. And I love what you said. Just trust me. Those are very lethal words to me. You have to trust you. You have to trust your gut, and you have to trust your intuition. And it's just like plastic surgery. You know how you become better. You learn from your past experiences. Believe me, I've had bad investments. I've invested with people that I really like that led me completely astray. So I just have a good feeling about things like that. And you're right. It is like plastic surgery. And I think you have to be the captain of your own ship. And you have to take care of your family. You have to take care of you. And guess who looks out for you more than anybody? It's you. That's why I don't trust any financial person to take care of what I do. My personal well-being, my financial well-being, no way. I mean, and I think if you let somebody else do it, you are a fool. I think because guess what?
Nobody's going to care about it the way you do.
Right. That's very important. Nobody cares about it like you. I don't care. Believe me. And my financial counselors are rock stars. I mean, I've been with most of them 15 years. But they know how I feel about it, and they know that I make the final decision. But they also know they don't bring me deals that are crap. I mean, because otherwise they'd be gone. But and don't do every deal. I mean, just because it sounds good, and you have to. It's like you said. You have to learn the business of medicine, and it's not so complicated. So so you're out now. You're almost. How many years are you out now?
I'm a year and a half.
A year and a half. Well, that's amazing. So you're close to being debt free. Close to it.
I finally have my net worth when I first started was like negative 500,000. Now it's positive 400,000. A lot of that is because of the investments and debt payoff that I've done. But I went from like 500,000 in student loans and about 50,000 in credit card debt to zero commercial debt.
See, that's awesome. You know that, Jordan. That's awesome. I mean, it took me longer than that, but I mean, when I came to Dallas, my salary was nothing. But my debt was really actually almost what yours was. So believe me, and you know what? That's very typical for physicians. They have no idea. I mean, especially I basically had to work through college and through medical school, and I had a lot of debt. I mean, my parents were awesome, but so I mean, that's a very typical story. And a lot of people, that's why I think, I like when I listen to hear you talking, because people can relate to that. So, but I mean, to do what you did in a year is phenomenal. It may take a lot longer, but because now you're actually making reasonably good money and your salary, and that's good. And so what's next? What's your next 1 to 3 year plan, and what should you look for? And then I'll tell you what I would do.
Yeah. So my next, within 5 years, my goal is to be debt free, to also build up my passive income through, real estate and stocks and bond investing and all that, to, be able to replace up to half of my salary. And then within 10 years to be financially free, where all of my passive investing and savings and nest egg covers all of my salary and expenses, so that I'm only working because I want to, not because I have to. I mean, I love what I do. I don't want to reach, financial freedom to retire. I just started, but I know I'll just be happier doing it because I know that I want to, not because I have to. And that way, if things shift or change, I can be nimble in my practice. I can adjust it without, having to stay on in a situation that's
right. The goal should always be to do what you want to do, when you want to do it, with the people you want to do it. That's called financial and life independence. And that's really an important, it took me a long time to understand that. It's very smart that you're doing it now, because I can tell you, I mean, I could do that today. I do what I do because I love to do it. And I do it because I love plastic surgery. I love doing what I'm doing. And I love the people I'm around with. And I know I only work with people I like. I only operate on people I like. I don't operate on anybody I don't like. I don't work with people I don't like. I don't talk to people on podcasts I don't like, because I'm at a phase of my life where I want to just have fun and give back. And, you know, what you've said is so powerful. And honestly, it's so important for people to know, because, you know, when I was in your shoes, you know, I was running 1,000 miles an hour, working 24/7, and I didn't have a clue. And I'll tell you that. But so it's really smart, Jordan, that you're doing this, because you're also, the other thing that's good about you is you're giving back. I'm really proud of that. I like, you know, I love people that give back. I mean, to me, that's a big deal, because you know how many people give back? Very few. And for somebody as young as you, Jordan, to give back, I love that. So kudos to you. That means good things are happening for you. And so, you know, I want to wrap up, but this is phenomenal. We have to do it again, Jordan, and I'll be on yours as well. But okay, so tell me the 5 things that people must do in their first 5 years of practice to become financially independent, but also to really,
You know, be in control of their own destiny.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, because money is a tool. Money in itself is worthless.
Right.
It's only good for the good that you can, you know, bring yourself and others with it.
Right.
So I think the biggest things that I always say, first, you know, get a financial education. Just start
Right.
reading a little bit about it, learn about it. Figure out your why you want to reach financial freedom. Because like I just said, if I'm sure I've seen people who maybe have this goal and they reach it and they never have a reason why they want to do it. And that can feel really empty.
right. We call that the wanderers. Yeah, they're the wanderers. You know, you have to have a who and a why. That's right. Okay. What's your number 3?
3, create that savings percent, at least 20%. 4, develop a financial plan. It can sound really daunting. If anyone wants, on my site, I have a post with my and my wife's actual financial plan, so you can look at it and you know, everything.
Yeah, send it to me and I'll put it on the podcast. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And then the last one is, you know, optimize your practice. So many people, I think, ignore that. Even in I'm in an employed setting, but I think I've done a really nice job of you know, optimizing my practice so it can be the most efficient and, you know, effective from both a patient standpoint and also from a revenue standpoint. And that's something that a lot of people kind of overlook, and I think is a really big thing.
Excellent points, Jordan. I love it. You're right. Because time is the one commodity that we never pay for, but we can never get it back. So choose your time wisely. Choose the people you hang out with wisely, and choose the focus in your life positively. And I love all those 5 things. The last thing I will say, and I know is giving back, and you're doing that intuitively by what you're doing. So Jordan, it's been a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm very proud of what you're doing, and keep doing it. And we'll be back for part 2 and 3. I know. Okay, so listen, and happy holidays and Merry Christmas to your family. Okay, stay warm in Buffalo. I guess it's warm there, right? It's warm in Dallas.
It is. It's a lot warmer than usual. It's still a little chilly, but yeah, thanks for having me, and, you know, for being the mentor that you've been for me. And so thank you.
All right. Well, take care. Enjoy. All right. Stay safe. All right. Take care.
Take care. You too.
Bye.